Переработает? Меня слышно?
Is it working? Okay. I'm happy to start our plenary session. You won't believe the cause of this delay, because Mr. Gref was discussing the exact monument we need to place so that everybody likes it. And Svetlana and Nadia just introduced the idea of holding some public hearings on this. But I would like to invite all our speakers to the plenary session. Head of the Natural Resources Management Agency, Svetlana Rodionova. Please welcome on stage. Head of Republic of Altai, Leonid Hording. Valery Fadzeev, please welcome on stage. This advisor to the President with the Council under President of the Russian Federation for the Development of Civic Society. Dmitry Kabyltin, head of the State Duma Committee on Natural Resources, Ecology and Environmental Safety. Hudik Andrei, this is Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Management of the Republic of Belarus. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing on this stage Mr. Denis Butsayev, Management Director of the Russian company, Russian Environmental Operator. You know, last year I was here and I fell in love with the Republic of Altai. It's a unique place where we want to get back to. And this year has passed very quickly. We were talking about the environmental thinking, which we can't do without, but we'll be talking about the environmental sovereignty. I was asking a question myself about what it is, and the answer to this, we have the head of the Altai Republic, Oleg Horohording. Please welcome him on stage. Sorry, there is no sound on. The interpreters don't hear any sound of the speaker.
Работает?
Чтобы действительно сберечь нашу планету.
I'm sure that sanctions and other limitations have only strengthened the need for search for new opportunities to develop the Russian economy in green fashion to protect and promote our environmental sovereignty as part of the BRICS Plus format. Particularly, environmental sovereignty is directly linked to the future and the right of the future generations for life. Stripping the environmental sovereignty, the country is stripped to independently define its future. We can't ignore such matters. I would like to separately stress that protection and promotion of environmental sovereignty doesn't generally mean rejecting the green technologies and meeting these strong and strict environmental standards and regulation. Environmental sovereignty is a right and opportunity to choose such model for development and sustainable development, which will include specifics of environmental priorities and unique environmental wealth of our homeland. As part of this initiative, we held some key events with key opinion leaders and experts to define what is environmental sovereignty, what are its components, and how to ensure its development. I would like to share today our draft developments and ideas on this matter: green economy and finances, environmental-based thinking, environmental education and new educational standards within the environmental sector. These domains will be discussed as part of the separate events during this forum. I would like to briefly inform you on how we're doing within these domains in the Republic of Altai. First off, our region is a territory of North-Spheric development, which is reflected in our strategic documents. We defined ecology and environmental protection as one of the key growth points, which made it to become a priority and which is consistent with the new challenges we are facing. The last key center is drafting the short-term development strategy, green development strategy by 2030 and long-term strategy by 2050. We developed concept for North-Spheric development of the Republic, which will be included in the updated regional development strategy as a separate chapter. The concept is a set of views and concepts on regional development balanced with the needs of population and balanced with the natural resources and capabilities of the region. Experts know that the Republic of Altai is becoming a pilot region in this matter, and the experience of implementation of such concept, North-Spheric development concept, can be replaced and can be applied to other regions and in other countries. We've drafted the calculation methodology of North-Spheric development of the region, considering all the environmental, financial, and other indicators. The index value of the Altai region in this regard is one of the top regions across whole Russia. All the strategic documents of every level are considering our main priority: sustainable development, combining growth and care for our natural resources and wealth, and preserving heritage of our republic. So the savings are achieved through increasing performance of utilization of our natural resources with developing environment, tourism, and renewable energies. These domains have really huge potential for further growth. The Republic of Altai has patented with the Russian Patent Agency the territorial brand. Mountain Altai is environmental capital of Russia. This is, of course, a patent for trademark, but of course, all our activities we are planning and developing in compliance with this brand. The next stage in this regard is creating a fully fledged marketing strategy to develop the tourism here. We will be scaling our industry by attracting some tourist flows from abroad while controlling it carefully and controlling the number of people and tourists coming in here. So we'll be deploying traditional but also cutting-edge technologies for this purpose. In cooperation with the Tomsk State University in Moscow Intergovernmental Analytics Center, we're specializing on preparing the draft concept of the program and preparation of the documents. We are forming some application to creating such strategic innovation center establishment here in the Republic of Altai. INTC Nosfera will be focusing on the regenerative economy technologies. This means organic food production, restoring the woods and the way we manage woods in a careful fashion. Also will be introducing some automated environmental status monitoring systems within our territory. We'll be introducing automated finance monitoring measurement system and also systems for our territory to be monitored in terms of all the objects and facilities located here, monitoring status. We'll be deploying some social and psychological technologies. We'll be introducing some technologies to also manage educational aspects and borders. Launching such center will ensure innovation transfer and strengthening the status of our city and capital as a technological capital. We'll be increasing our educational performance because we believe that fully fledged and high quality education will help us form a new generation, a quality one in terms of environmental thinking. And Russia will maintain its leading positions in this regard. Only at the school level, our educational activities covering 15,000 young students, considering the fact that the total population makes 200,000 people. We are maintaining support to NGOs working in this area. We're supporting also interesting, engaging environmental initiatives in this area. Here, in our republic, we are popularizing environmental tourism and educating them to carefully treat the nature they're dealing with. Considering the little number of locals, the tourist flow last year made 2.5 million people, according to official data, and according to unofficial data, 4 million people. We need to minimize anthropological loads. We need to form within our tourists and guests an understanding of the nature as a precious item we need to treat carefully. This is really important and necessary part of the environmental policy in our country. The Republic of Altai is trying to become leader across the whole country through such events as Eco-Altai Thread of Nature. We would like to become a center which helps accumulate ideas to ensure and strengthen our environmental sovereignty. Dear friends, I'm happy about the fact that there are so many key opinion leaders and experts attending such forum so that we can ensure environmental sovereignty in general, but also in terms of maintaining its key components. We need to ensure Russia's leadership in the environmental protection domain to the benefit of our country, to the generations to come, and to the planet in general. I would like to thank the speakers and all the key experts here. And also I would like to thank sponsors for their help to organize this event. And I would like to thank Mr. Graf. We've been waiting for a long time for this facility to be launched so that this third forum can be held at this Manjarok resort site. So because Sber is the main investor into our republic and the biggest taxpayer. Thank you, Oleg Leonidovich. Thank you, Mr. Horahordin. The republic is boasting huge potential. I would like to invite to the stage Herman Graf, Executive Board Chairman of the Sberbank of Russia. Mr. Graf, why do you think nature is always bringing some unpleasant surprises to the humankind? The recent earthquake in Morocco, earthquakes in India and China, where whole residential areas have been demolished by nature. how humankind can influence this. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to welcome you here at this welcoming resort site, Manzarok. We are doing just first steps to develop the ski resort, the major one in Russia, and we are being busy designing and building the biggest all-seasonal ski resort complex. And I hope that with every year our forum will be growing and taking momentum, and our ski resort will be adding some additional ski routes. We'll be seeing more cultural objects, and also other facilities and sites of interest and landmarks. I hope that everyone, the guests, will find something to be busy with here, and I'm happy that ALTAI is the place we are holding this event.
Потенциал, экологический потенциал Алтая.
Considering the huge potential, environmental potential of the site and of the region, I'm really thankful to have the idea of the head of the Republic of ALTAI to hold such main environmental forum, namely here. And this striving to become the major site where the biggest environmental forums are held is a good way to go. We experience many global changes and really huge turmoil on the global scale. And the reason for this, of course, the main one is the human activities. And the roots of the environmental crisis are obvious. And we're trying to find a way to harmonize our relationship with the nature. It seems to me that many components are required for this to be a complete solution. And first off, we need to start with changing the mindset of people. Eventually, this is us who are the beneficiaries of the gifts of the nature. So we are the ones who generate the biggest loads onto the ecosystem. We've been witnessing dramatic changes across the world in this domain. Over the last 8 years, starting from 2015, we experienced the most hottest years across the globe. The biodiversity is degrading. We don't see any improvement here, unfortunately. And everyone else can note this and see this at the hands-on level. 25% of all the biodiversity of the Earth is threatened by extinction. Around 3 weeks ago, I got back from my trip across the Far East. And I was at the island Iturup. There is a good entrepreneur working there, Mr. Verhovsky. He's the master of Iturup. That's what they call him. And he created really good conditions for people working there and living there. He created really huge social infrastructure. And they told us a really huge case. And he had to demolish a new one, not really obsolete seafood processing factory, because the salmon has left as a species the Sakhalin Island. The good news is that not the salmon, which is not here, but the white fish has returned here. And they built a new white fish processing plant, and different species of whales have returned there. Unfortunately, so did the sharks too, but I can say that the fishermen started catching fish species which had never been seen there before around Sakhalin Island. All of this was happening around 5 or 7 years. I mean, it was around that time, and I believe these are the changes which will have impact on our health and our condition as humans. We're witnessing various environmental initiatives carried out by various international bodies. The Colombian University made a forecast that during the 80 years to come, around 3 million people will die only due to climate changes. And by 2030, around 2 million people will be going beyond the poverty line, and 670 million people will be facing really huge wealth problems and poverty problems as such. And the generator of such events is not any criminal activities or some other actions, only environmental consequences. By 2020, we counted around 300 million people, which can be referred to as environmental refugees. This is a colossal problem. I mean, and if this keeps going on, then we'll be witnessing a chain reaction to this. Today we see that on and on we are facing really rare and very dangerous natural calamities. And by the end of this decade, the number of them will grow by 20 or 30 times. Over the last 10 years, we've registered around 12,000 such cases, from which around 2 million people died, and damage amount to $4.3 trillion. If you multiply it by 20 or 30, you'll have an understanding of what's coming in terms of its influence on the economy and health of life conditions of people. It's a very complex issue which requires really serious attention from the governmental bodies and officials, particularly if we don't manage to fulfill our plans in terms of energy transition. Then global GDP will be reduced by $6 trillion by 2050, and Russia will have lost 2 to 3% of GDP annually, and in some regions can be losing even 5 to 6%. So, due to climate changes, the country's rating will be dropping in such countries as Canada, France, Britain, Japan, United States. And from the financial and economic point of view, this problem is a very important one. Investment into the improvement of environmental health of the planet is a very important one. This shall be also financially viable and bring some financial returns. We need to introduce a set of indicators which will be reflecting the real state of the nature and the quality of interaction between the humankind and nature. As a navigation system for this purpose, there's a minimum challenges we need to address during the next time to come. We need to get some really precise feedback from the environment so that we make proper solutions, that we understand where we are and where we're heading for. For us, it's important to stop living at the cost of the future of our kids. So because we can now say that we are ripping them of the nature they should be living in the future. So we're taking alone in terms of the nature we're consuming now. So we need to change our minds, and we need to consider nature as an asset which will be supported and managed in the long-term perspective. So over the hundreds of years to come. So specifically, the future of the people will be defined by this parameter, and this parameter will be the key one. Our closest neighbors are going this way. The Academy of Sciences, for instance, of China, they suggested such an indicator to consider. Gross ecosystem product, domestic product. We all know GDP, but China invented this environmental indicator, a complex one. So what do we do about it in Russia? In terms of our potential contribution to addressing the global challenge of maintaining and preserving nature, the Russian Statistic Agency evaluated the cost of natural resources in Russia to the tune of 104 trillion rubles. This accounts to 15% of all the national wealth in Russia, and we should be treating this carefully. The role and importance of ALTAI is really hard to overestimate and underestimate, of course. We need to open up the Republic of ALTAI to other people, but also create good conditions for people living here. There are only 70,000 ALTAI people living here, and everyone who is coming here should be first off guided by the idea to maintain the traditions of ALTAI people and maintaining their lifestyle. They don't have any second homeland, they're ALTAI people. And for us, it's important to stress the whole culture, beautiful culture of these beautiful people. And whatever we do here at ALTAI is guided by two key goals. First, maintaining the cultural traditions of ALTAI people, and second, improving the strength and health of the nature. You might have seen that the Lake Manjarok has been undergoing an environmental calamity, but I would like to thank our colleagues from the Natural Protection Environmental Agency, Mr. Kozlov, because we addressed this problem, because we introduced some project as part of the public-private partnership. The project on improving health of the lake is evaluated by 50 billion rubles. 400 million rubles have been allocated by the agency, Natural Resource Protection Agency, and 400 million rubles have been allocated by our company. Of course, we don't have a crystal clear water right now, but we won't be having this bog we used to see before. So we almost completed the cleaning of 59% of the whole area, and within the next 3 years to come, we hope that the lake will be completely clean, as it initially was the case, so that also, the Lake Manjarok can be made really comfortable. We'd like to make here a beach accessible for the locals, of course, and I hope that we can enjoy the natural habitat in terms of lakes and waterways of the Republic.
We take an active part in the restoration of forests. Every year we plant first and foremost rare and unique types of trees, and over the past year here in Altai we planted over 50,000 units of cedar, and we will reach 1 million units from the beginning of the initiative this year. We would like to take the scope of planting of cedar to 1 million in Altai only, because it's a long-growing tree and we need to restore this rich resource. We've also been working on eco-paths a lot, because it's really important to make things accessible, including the Altai Mountains. The Tugis company that hails from Novosibirsk has been doing a lot to promote local natural resources first and foremost, and we've already launched 15 eco-paths, eco-routes that are on Tugis maps, and you can explore them and you can follow them with your navigator. We will create dozens of kilometers of paths more, as ecologically as possible, so that people could use and enjoy the beauties and resources, while also not leaving any trash, any waste, making it as comfortable for both the people and the nature as possible. We also restore the populations of precious fish teams in the river of Ob and the river of Tom. We've already released a lot of Nelma species that we grew preliminarily in an incubator, and we will be happy to participate in any such initiatives that anybody will come up with, primarily in this beautiful region. And a few more words. This year we are adopting a new strategy of ESG, and we would like to considerably expand our participation in all the elements of it, including the social element. We've been working a lot on environment protection. We've come up with a methodology and a whole range of regulatory documents together with the government of the Russian Federation, trying to regulate the monitoring of environmental risks and integrate Russia into all the environmental processes globally, making it one of the leaders not just in the territory and the scope of natural resources, but also in the contribution of resolution of environmental issues. So social responsibility is a large aspect of life of any big company, and we've been trying to work out ESG as social responsibility and social citizenship standards for big businesses. We will try to draw up standards that are acceptable for all major Russian companies, because social responsibility for different companies means different things now, For some, it's just installing a trash bin, while some create huge social infrastructures servicing whole regions. And standards must vary. They must suit the scale of every business, every corporation. And to conclude this presentation, I would like to quote our great writer Konstantin Paustovsky, who said, the understanding of nature and humanistic and careful treatment of it are some of the elements of morality, culture, and part of the general outlook of a person. So I would like to wish all of you a great mood, great results of this forum, and thank the governor, I guess, first of all, for his initiative of holding this event, because it starts a very important conversation in our country. And with every year, the expert insight into the topic will be deepening, hopefully. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Grev. With that, we continue. Here in the Presidium, we have Svetlana Rodionova, head of the Federal Natural Resource Use Supervision Agency. Hopefully you are not here to see to some problems in the region. Hello, everyone. We've already mentioned that behind our back we have an example of a bad treatment of an environmental site and an ecological disaster. In fact, this is something that shouldn't have been done by humans. We see this lake, and we understand that we're spending a lot of money now to restore it to its initial condition. And I guess it's good that the government, businesses, and large investors have found it in themselves to restore this object to its initial natural condition. But this is not the main topic for me. First of all, I was here 2 years ago. This forum looked very different. I wasn't here last year, but I noticed the difference. The composition of the audience, of the Presidium, and of the agenda are now different. I guess the demands of the audience are different too, because I see that many came from different regions of the country, and we have foreign participants. I have my own feeling about environmental fora. I think there are too many of them, personally. I think they are too fragmented, there are too many of them, and they actually kind of make the whole idea fuzzy. There is an environmental agenda, but it must be more consolidated. And why I'm here, and why the speakers chose this forum, why the Ministry of Natural Resources is represented here, why big companies like Sberbank pay attention, is, I guess, because we need to stop and get together and consolidate ourselves to make some loud decisions. As to international agenda, there is an instruction of the President of the Russian Federation to reinforce the participation of Russia in all international discussions of any environmental issues. There is a similar instruction to the head of the government, and it's been a very insistent and prolific work of Vice Prime Minister Abramchenko, who has worked, and we are now represented in all basic fora and conventions, and whether Russia, they want to hear Russia or not, it's heard, because we have things to say. And we have things to say because in this country, the environmental agenda has been very stable. Everybody knows the hype that was raised by the climate agenda that kind of grew more into environmental hype. And we know that for the past few years, many companies have declared that they have been regularly moving towards environmental goals and ESG for everyone that Mr. Grev has mentioned. Has also been about ecology for most. Nobody quite understood what they were going to do except for maybe cutting down on the use of paper in their offices. But everybody was talking about it. And now it's time to rethink things, try to apply themselves and really see how you feel about ecology. There is a big environmental agenda. And the environmental market in this Russia is the last one that has not been stabilized. I mean, it exists, and it's tens of billions of rubles per year. That's tens of billions of rubles per year, I repeat. It's a whole market, and it's yet to be formed. In maybe 3 years, it will be completely shaped, as you can see from the regulations, from the companies that emerge, and from the needs of the businesses that are being voiced. There are also para-business structures, various consulting companies that have been multiplying in number. It's kind of a foam that accompanies a big submarine that rises from the depth. They're kind of not so necessary. However, this market is now tens of billions of rubles worth. And since it's been growing consistently, the trend towards going green is there, and it's not going anywhere. Right now, I understand that businesses have been engaged in it. They understand it. They have been calculating the costs, and they've calculated that it's economically feasible. The state here must address various tasks, such as meeting the needs of the population, preserving itself as a structure, implementing its project, including those that involve renewable natural resources. You cannot simply exhaust them. And position itself, including positioning in the international agenda. So in support of what the governor has said about ecological sovereignty, the use of all the national skills, ecological culture skills is important. I mean, if we're on Altai, I was met at the airport by a common driver, and he told me that Altai people are very respectful, He's not an Altai person himself, but he says that the locals are very respectful to children, to guests, to everyone. He thought I was a tourist. And he said that unfortunately 10% of tourists are pigs, to quote him. Well, let's try our best not to be called the 10% of pigs, We need to use the heritage that the Altai people have preserved throughout the generations and want to pass down to the next generation. Let's learn from them how to treat natural resources with care and try to translate it into the big complexes that is built here, ethnic villages, the Teletskaya Lake, etc. We need to understand that things need to be renewable, they need to be preservable, and we need to follow their rules. We must be clear that the centuries-long rules can be modified based on new technologies, but they must be preserved. We need to ensure minimum external impact, using only the best technologies that serve to minimize the external impact. And currently, we think that these best practices are the environmental sovereignty as we understand it. We form it within ourselves, we can show it, we must prove it, and we must protect it. 2 years ago, we were talking about endemic species, the plants or animals that live only here. And this conversation must be renewed every year. These cultural traditions that have allowed us to reproduce the endemic species that are very much in demand in any country of the world, including Russia, are part of the culture that was passed down together with the environmental need to reproduce these plants or any natural riches for that matter. So environmental sovereignty is something that we formed our position on, and we need to project it, given our culture, given our traditions, given our needs, and our goals. And of course, as the head of the agency, I am expected to threaten businesses, as they asked me. Well, we will. In some respects, we will. I mean, it sounds bad, including in the times of moratorium. If you think a business is barbarianship, business is above the law, then yes, we will threaten them together with the members of parliament that adopt laws, together with the local parliamentary members that talk about the voice of the people, with public hearings and environmental reviews, expert inspections and preventive visits. Yes, we will. And if you want cooperation and dialogue, you will get it. But if you want to just make your buck on the side by cutting corners and leaving a burnt ground behind, then yes, you will be threatened. All this money will be taken back and returned to restore the damage done. So as the head of a controlling body, I can tell you very simply and plainly, our goal is to send this message, to be preventive, and to tell you how to behave. We are ready to help you to build your big investment projects, develop tourism, make all the farthest corner of our large country accessible while maintaining environmental sovereignty so that we would have things to preserve. The rules are already there. They've already been voiced. I think they're very easy and simple, and I think that the dialogue at fora like this is probably the largest one. Hopefully, in a year or two, there will be more businesses here represented than officials, more consumers than activists, for the simple reason that it's in your interest. It's you who must be talking about the best practices. It's you who must be boasting, who must be actually confessing your sins if you have some, and apologizing if you have anything to apologize for, and tell us how you will behave tomorrow so that we could feel safe. So then I, coming to the stage, would say I'm not going to threaten businesses, I'm not going to scare businesses, we are happy to discuss our future. And all of this adds up to environmental sovereignty, sustainable development, and the clear position that the government and the Ministry of Natural Resources has been projecting. Everything that the state needs to do right now, we are doing it. We're doing the big clean, so to say, a rejuvenation of water objects, eco-monitoring, and many other promising projects. The government is ahead of businesses right now. It's more proactive and more active in creating the basis for comfortable business, so that it would have a very simple thing, clear lay of the land and rules of the game for many decades to come. Many laws are behind 3 to 5 years, but we are actually ahead by some 10 years. And in this time, you can calculate your costs, you can understand whether it's feasible to do your business, taking into account the interests of the population, the local communities, and the next generations. So this big, comprehensive work is already being done, and I think right now environmental fora, among which this one is probably the main one and the first one, and the next year I'll be sure to be here as a representative of my agency, is probably the best, the biggest conversation forum, and the resolutions made based on the results of this forum will probably be paramount. And at such events, resolutions made must be the roadmaps for the next years, the next dozens of years maybe, and everybody must take them into account, businesses, officials, NGOs, because only together we represent what is called our country. Thank you. Thank you so much, Svetlana. So the businesses are warned and forearmed. Yes, we will try to do our best to preserve the environment. And Ms. Radiona has already said that Russia must be immersed in the global environmental agenda, and Mr. Gref has mentioned that we must lead in the solution of environmental problems. So, Valery, I think we have a unique opportunity to propose our rules of the game, because next year we are presiding in BRICS, and we can offer our ideas to other countries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Radionova. It was I who asked about businesses being threatened, but it was asked in a kind way, a very kind way, but you also answered in a very kind way, to be fair, so thank you. So, concerning international affairs, based on the topic of environmental thinking, well, environmental thinking seems to be on the top of every agenda at every global conference for a long time, starting from the Davos Forum. It's on the front pages of every newspaper, in every media. But the decisions made so far have been not far-reaching enough. On the one hand, there are very extreme figures such as Greta Thunberg. You know, she's frankly scary. I don't think we'll go anywhere if everyone is like Greta Thunberg. On the other hand, the decisions made by businesses and the governments have been kind of less consequential than necessary, and I've been very skeptical about it. I think that at some point you need to make drastic decisions. If you talk about cars, for instance, maybe somebody has read or remembers that in the 1970s, Europe had acid rains. Almost all the Scandinavian forests were poisoned by them because the pollution from the cars were so big and all carried by the wind to Scandinavia that it was threatened by deforestation. Europe actually has been deforested, and there was a drastic decision made to cut their emissions. Businesses said it would be impossible, it would take too long, the buyers would not afford the cars, the petroleum would be too expensive. However, the decisions were made and they were implemented in the next few decades, and the emissions were cut by dozens of times, even though in large cities the emissions of cars are still the main pollutant. But it was a drastic measure. And now we're talking about electric cars, and there's also been a drastic solution made saying that in Europe, in a few years, maximum 10 or 20, it would switch completely to electric cars. But for one thing, it has not been proved that overall the whole production change, including the accumulators, the batteries of cars, creates less environmental footprint than internal combustion engines. But we'll see about that. But the main thing, as Mr. Gref has mentioned, is related to consumers. I mean, how long will these cars last? I mean, an electric car is a small trolley bus. It's just that it doesn't have the upper part, you know. Do you know how long it lasts until capital repairs? Only 600,000 kilometers. We have quite a few trolleybuses that have covered 2.5 million kilometers. I mean, can a car cover this? I mean, it's one of the major aspects of cutting environmental footprints for real is resource saving. The longer a car lasts, the less plastic you need, the less other materials you need, the less components you need. That's the way to really cut your environmental footprint. And this is something that hasn't been discussed. And that's what I mean when I talk about drastic decisions. But we haven't been discussing this because everybody says the consumers will be offended and people who have cars want to switch their cars every 5 years. Well, unfortunately, by far not everyone has the money. And businesses want to make drivers switch cars so often. Of course, if you create cars that can only last 600,000 miles, then they might go bankrupt. So a joint decision needs to be made as to how to restructure the car industry overall, and it's a very difficult task. It has hardly been discussed. Another topic that has hardly been discussed is what we eat. The richer people eat better food, but the main part of humanity consumes herbicides, pesticides, and antibiotics. Do we have chicken without antibiotics in its meat? I don't know. Biologists and other experts say that the great rich soils, we have almost half of the great soils in the world, already have antibiotics in it. It's not even in the meat, it's already in the soil. We've been polluting the soil directly. Isn't it another task to stop polluting what we'll be eating later? It's a task that is at hand, but has hardly been discussed. So healthy food for all, and not just for the rich ones. There are organic products with special stores that sell them, but it's really a discrimination. I mean, I've spoken to experts, and they say that yes, it's possible to give everybody clean food, at least in Russia, because we have huge expenses of rich soil, and we can provide for all the 150 million people. It's an environmental task too, but we've been too shy about it, saying, well, it's too complicated. Yes, it is complicated, but you need to tackle large-scale issues. And that's the strategy. And that's something that we can offer to ourselves and to the world. And now for the practicalities. In 2025, we'll see the expiry of the strategy of environmental safety. And I think it's time to start thinking about it and to arrange the work on drafting a new strategy of environmental safety and security. There must be two lines of work here. First, we need to retain good experts. We do have good experts. And secondly, the strategy must not be drafted internally, only at desks. It must be discussed publicly, and not just by those who call themselves environmental activists. It must be discussed throughout the society. We have very powerful societal institutions. It mustn't be hidden behind desks. And secondly, it mustn't be Russian only. Of course, it must primarily target the solution of our own internal problems, but it must also be offerable to the world, to the West, as our own vision. I mean, we've been talking about the Western vision a lot, about racism, neocolonialism, whatever. I mean, it can be true, and we can expand on it. The West does have its own opinions, but there is no alternative to them. Sometimes we say that we are involved in all international processes. It's good that we are involved, but we need to start offering alternatives, large-scale alternatives, our alternative vision of solution of environmental problems of the Earth. And if you ask me why us, Then, well, who else then? I mean, there's nobody else but us. There's the big West. There is the rest of the fragmented world, 7/8 of the world. There's also China that has been rising more or less. But it is Russia that must, if I may say so, become the leader. I mean, think about it. It's our challenge, and we must handle it. And in order to do so, we need to believe in our strength and in being right, because at some point we lost this faith. About 25 or 30 years ago, we lost it, and now we're only slowly regaining it, including through traumatic events. But we've been restoring our faith in ourselves. And in terms of ecology, please include 2 points that I made in the resolution of the forum if you support me. Yes, let's take the initiative into our own hands. So going back to our country, in September, a new law came into force saying that in preserved territories, people can now walk, hike, and even build some hotels and resorts. And we have a representative of the legislators here, Dmitry Kabylkin. So let me ask you, whether everything is really regulated by the law, or does something need to be added, maybe some more regulations? And in terms of accessibility, not every preserve can be reached. Maybe some of them can only be reached by expensive helicopters. Well, I've prepared a small presentation, after which I will take your question, if I may. Thank you. Dear Oleg, dear Presidium, dear friends and colleagues, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to take part in this very important international forum, as I see it. Its title is very exciting, ALTAI, Threat of Nature. It kind of seems like a comprehensive name, but the threat kind of speaks to the fragility of the issue and of the complicated processes. In the global instability, there is a special role to the search of sustainable development, including ecological, economic, and social components. It's a new life philosophy that entails a change in technological structure. Consumption model is replaced by savings model. Savings of population, environment, territories, well-being, and the future. In terms of ecology, we are focused on specially protected areas constituting about 13% of the whole area of the Russian Federation. That's the model of our ecosystems that we should be driving all the other territories to. Another line of work is improving the quality of life of the people, something that we already mentioned, including and primarily local communities. That's a wide range of actions from dignified life to creating workplaces, jobs, and cultural identity preservation. And the third line is responsible economy in the key industries. In terms of ALTAI, we see that the main value of the region is harmony of the people and the nature, but there are risks to it. In this republic, there are 10 times less people than the tourists that visit it. So there is a big load, 10 times more tourist load, and this concerns all the infrastructure from housing and utilities to waste management infrastructure, and of course burden on the nature that requires special treatment. It is impossible to just set a barbed wire around the republic because humans are an important part of the existing ecosystem. So we need to set some standards of cohabitation, both for settlements that are next to preserved sites and for the sites themselves. We need to avoid situations when luxury is accompanied by poverty. The standards must ensure dignified life of local communities and restoration of any impaired ecosystems, including by creating the necessary ecosystem We need to monitor and properly manage such territories. A leading role in forming a new future belongs to the region and the local communities. The federal center must just facilitate the implementation of these plans through financial, legislative, and other instruments. Starting September 1st, the law on the development of tourism on especially protected territories has come into force, and it must be at the core of further steps. We must understand the level of pressure we can put on nature and set up plans for the development of natural sites outside of infrastructure of the cities and their own infrastructure. Svetlana has already mentioned very correctly that in 3 more years the situation will change completely. Russia does not only have large soil resources, but it also has large above-terranean resources as well. And when she mentioned pressuring businesses, well, she was very careful about it because she does it in a very beautiful way, and I can only bow down to her professionalism. But it will be 1,000 times more difficult for her to work in such territories where production capacities will not be developed as much as on other territories, because business environmentalism or environmental or green businesses require a fine line, and Svetlana has yet to polish her art of monitoring with this.
It's enough to say that people living here, these are the real saviors of Altai. So we're talking about indigenous people. If you not get tricked by the populism which might have been developed among the indigenous people, if they once think that the authorities start pressuring them and then they start to react, if you don't get tricked by it, and then you'll make a breach between the indigenous people and the modern life, culture, and the governmental practices deployed within the Republic of Altai, then you'll reach this balance. And I believe that will be a hard way. I know some territories which are going this way, and they've have their development stalled. And those who found their harmony in this regard and have advanced further, these territories, these regional constituencies, have within Russia huge future. So such unique places as Altai, we don't see them here on Earth, almost none there are. Thank you very much. Let's learn about the regional environmental policy in the Republic of Altai, how it looks like. I would like to give the floor to the head of Elkur Altai of the Republic of Altai, Artur Pavlovich Kohoyev. Good afternoon to everybody, distinguished participants of today's forum. First off, I would like to welcome you here on the grounds of the mountain Altai, on the land of thousands of clearest rivers and ponds and lakes, on the land of myths and legends. This is the place which maintained and preserved its unique regional nature. Of course, the mountain Altai is enjoying popularity. The tourism is being heavily developed. We are seeing really many investment projects running, especially in the tourist industry, but historically seeing the main industry for our locals for many centuries has been agriculture as such. It's been almost 30 years when we've been observing tourism going on here. From our side, at the level of regional parliament, we are adopting a series of important draft laws targeted at preserving the nature, particularly laws on protecting the environment, environmental expertise laws, red book laws, etc., environmental education draft laws. Everything of these works, of course. But I'd like to get to another point. Today, we have an understanding that there is a certain line of investors keen to join our investment activities in our region due to the fact that ALTAI is enjoying popularity growth in terms of investment attractiveness. But of course, we need investments of socially responsible nature, environmentally responsible nature. Today, we are hosted by the Monjarok complex, a highly technologically developed resort facility. It's been developed. It's really good in terms of technology. But Herman Graf had his presentation here, and he was talking about many investments to not only preserve but also to re-establish the original nature. Restoration of the lake, planting trees. All these activities are confirming that our investor, who was having the floor before my colleagues, is socially responsible, and we need to create such conditions. We at ALTAI have some quote from myths or legends. Once upon a time, there was a god, and he decided to look at how the living creatures are living, creatures he created. Female horse with a small baby child horse, and then he planted also one woman with a small child, also in the same valley, and then they had different valleys. The horse valley, where the both horses were eating grass, was as green as it was initially. And the valley where the woman with a child was, he found it with no grass, with all the blackness on the ground. And he decided to give the man the tribute of being able to eat not only grass, but also other different foods and objects. What I'm trying to tell you is we are not only open to the recreational investors who are investing into the environment, but for us it's also important to have investors who would maintain and preserve the balance in terms of cultural approach, in terms of approaching the locals and indigenous people, in terms of utilizing nature accordingly, so that we together can be developing our unique region and our country. I would like to grab the opportunity. I would like to thank Svetlana. When it was 2 years ago, when she arrived at the forum, we approached her with the case of illegal endemic herbs harvesting, red roots grass, golden root grass. Unfortunately, back then, the charges and penalties for harvesting such rare grasses was really not enough, and many people were doing it illegally. And I would like to thank our chairman of the Environmental Protection Committee and other experts, so that the legal responsibility was introduced for harvesting just rare plants. Thank you very much. I wish you successful work at this forum. Thank you very much for your contribution. We were talking about unique character of the Republic of ALTAI and those who live here, about traditions we need to consider and respect. I would like to invite the director of the Research Center of Asia and Africa at the Moscow State University. What are the cultural values at the southeastern part of Russia? Can you tell us? Of course, starting with the activization of the Russian politics drifting towards the east, we started talking about importance of our environmental policy, how it's important in terms of cooperating with the eastern countries. All the eastern and southern countries are going through all these same stages we are undergoing now. The economic growth of China is exceeding other countries, neighboring countries, but it had several stages. It was always the case where we are discussing here. What I'm trying to tell you, we are not the first ones who are suffering from the problems described by our colleagues. The fact is, economic growth is always targeting the reduction of costs. China in 1990s, 2000s demonstrated the same idea, and Vietnam until 2020, 2021, Malaysia and Indonesia having the same problem. They disregard the environmental challenges because they need to win in the economic race, which results in really dramatic consequences, but simultaneously brings these countries to the top ratings of the economic leading nations. And one day they need to understand, as Mr. Graf said, how to not to borrow the natural resources from the future generations to come. We need to understand how to address it. There are some figures of what it might cost. The transition for China could cost from 45% of GDP annually, this transition, I mean, and it's a huge number. It's been addressed not at the conference level. It's being decided at the level of economic stimulus. So our colleagues from Eastern countries are promoting some initiatives to stimulate environmental thinking. Initially, everyone thinks we need to deploy two methods: educating the behavior and introducing punishment. Education means universities introduce some courses on environmental thinking. That was the case in China in 1990s. In Indonesia this year, they've launched some training courses on how to preserve the nature. That's correct, but it merely works. So because the knowledge itself, stimulated by some funding, doesn't have that big value. Punishment methods does work though. In China, for instance, in 2021, according to the most recent data, more than 1/3 of Chinese companies have received some instruction penalties from the ESG monitoring body, and they paid huge penalties and fees to correct for this. But this doesn't work long term. Momentarily, yes. One stimulating factor which only works is the third one: green money, green finances, and green economy. That's the case where governmental bodies and private businesses are interconnected with the economic stimulus. In China, they calculate that in order to be able to meet the requirements of the environmental agenda, they need to invest from $150 to $170 billion, for instance. Wastewater cleaning facilities, etc. There's a huge amount of money needed. Whereas the losses to the economy due to the delayed profits, necessity to retrain personnel, so the total losses amount to $1 trillion a year for one country. I'm talking about the losses. These are the losses. So because improvement of the environmentally oriented mindset doesn't give an immediate profit. It will yield profit somewhere later. But we need to understand that those who harm the environment, those don't think in terms of the future. They are thinking in terms of now. And we need to punish them now. It was a correct case brought up in relation to the electric vehicles. For instance, in China, they're transitioning to electric vehicles. In China, there is a requirement by 2030, there must be one electric charging station per one electric vehicle. the China will be covered with a network of such electric charging station. So because they consider the electric vehicle almost as a bicycle, therefore in China we have car graveyards in China. So people just dispose of them because they're facing problems with processing, recycling lithium batteries. But in case of cars, it's very easier to dispose of them than to recycle them. But if we stop producing cars and diesel and all the engines, then we'll have problems with employment. So how stimulation works in China? If you take a so-called environmental loan in Chinese People's Bank, in the central bank, then the rate is 1.7% for such a loan. The loan duration is 1 year. There is an extension option. Just to see the difference, the regular loan is issued at 4%. How can you redirect all the profits from such green loan just to address all the necessary green energy transition, green transport, transition to electric vehicles, creating alternative energy sources for cities, creating smart cities where they don't use gas or coal. And strangers may seem it did work. Now we're seeing that the Chinese banks have issued loans to the tune of almost $350 billion as per August of this year. And this is what's stimulating the transition to environmentally clean types of energy. And for instance, there is a business which is taking some loan for environmental purposes. It's done through bonds, and then there are evaluation experts who evaluate whether this is really environmental loan or just an attempt to crook the people and the government for money. So because in this case, if the experts consider this project, this loan funding as a green one, then the expert commission approves further funding and further rates, such as I presented to you earlier. So the methods which are working in China, economic green stimulus methods, not punishment. In Vietnam, they are having the same story because Vietnam has the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems there. The central part of Vietnam, Mekong area, is being dying off. And last year they moved to the economics stimulating, and it worked. While turning to the east, we are dealing with the countries, and we need to understand that for the next decades to come, only the Asian countries will be serious partners for us. So dealing with these Asian countries, we need to understand that in terms of their environmental approach format, they're ahead of Russia.
Туризма, экотуризма, это все уже давным-давно создавалось.
And these topics we are discussing now, the green tourism area, it has been the case in China already. And they had their problems and challenges already. They have the experience. On the grounds of Chinese Academy of Science, they discussed environmental KPIs measurement within China. I was part of the forums held on this topic, and I saw how far they progress using big data analysis and other computer tools for this purpose. They managed to analyze and evaluate the exact amount of damage made to a specific area. And we, in our country, we have completely leftist opinions in our environmental approach because they say, no, there is no cutting trees here. It's prohibited. Otherwise, we'll get everything destroyed, etc. We had the case where the Baikal-Amur railway line, or part of it, has been flooded, and damage amounted to 1 billion rubles a day. The reason for this, because the environmental activists were campaigning and protesting against building some flood protection equipment and fences around the Baikal-Amur railway line. So that's the reason we need to engage proper experts, and we need to evaluate big data. And based on its analysis, we can approach to more or less objective and precise evaluation of what's happening. In conclusion, I'd like to draw attention to the fact that the environmental agenda, specifically in ALTAI, is a good platform and basis to talk to our Eastern partners. So we're talking about increased investments, environmental partnerships, but cooperating with our close partners, Mongolia and Kazakhstan, we think this is our internal problem now, because we are located also partly in Asia. We are not shy to discuss the matter of contaminating the river of Amur with China, but we don't attract our Asian partners to our local Russian initiatives to discuss it, which we are having in Altai or another region. So this is a good lever to development the Russian policy in the western region, in the eastern region. Thank you very much. So the only thing is left to get an agreement with the central bank. The interest rate of 1.7%. To give it out, it's unrealistic in Russia. We have a guest from Mongolia. Extraordinary plenipotentiary ambassador of Mongolia to the Russian Federation, Ozisaihan and Stuvshing. So we need to get to your point. How do you see our coordination and communication in terms of addressing environmental challenges? Is it right so that we don't have any discussions? Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers of the International Forum Eco-ALTAI Thread of the Nature. I'm happy to remember that on the 18th of August 1966, here in this beautiful place, the first Mongolian Soviet Youth Festival was held. The opening ceremony of the festival, ALTAI 66, was done as a token of friendship between the Mongolian and Soviet people. The song Manzarok was written by a Soviet famous one, composer Oskar Felsman. Edita Piecha and Muslim Magamayev, the Soviet famous singers, have sung this song. The words went like this. Tell me, my friend, what is Manzarok? Is it an island? Manzarok is a town. Manzarok is friendship. Manzarok is loyalty. This is how the song goes. Based on the words from this song, Manzarok has become the place where we meet. On this forum's grounds, we'll have discussion on reasonable activities of people which become the decisive factor for the condition, status of the biosphere. I hope that this international forum, ALTAI Threatened Nature, becomes the territory of the strategic initiatives for environmental development, combining and uniting the best practices from various regions, which allow us to ensure and maintain environmental balance. According to the Environmental Charter of the United Nations and maintaining biodiversity, Mongolia is working on actions taken in this regard to reduce the global climate change and to reduce the degradation of biodiversity. We also would like to reduce trees cutting and also degradation of soils. We need to maintain water resources and ensure the balance within the ecosystem. President of Mongolia, Buknaki Kurasukh, has demonstrated his approach, launching a nationwide initiative planting 1 billion trees. So, as part of this initiative, we grew huge number of seeds and small trees in special farms, and then we were able to plant 37 million plants by now. Our country is meeting its obligation as per Paris Accord to reduce the greenhouse gases through increasing the area of its absorption. Mongolia as a region boasts huge potential for renewable energy resources, which is estimated at 2,600 gigawatts due to its geographical location and climate. This demonstrates huge potential for drastic increase in renewable energy production. Therefore, we are able to significantly contribute to increase of regional energy collaboration. For this purpose, we are going to use hydropower plant and other renewable energy sources. We'll be building water reservoirs with huge capacities. I would like to mention that Mongolia is heavily focusing on reduction of green gases. Therefore, Mongolia has joined the global methane promise. And we are collaborating as part of this global promise with other countries. We also should be focusing specifically on development of environmental tourism through the Great Tea Route. And first off, we need to focus on developing our ties with the Gorno-Altaisk and other bordering towns and cities so that we can foster cooperation between the two parties. Over the last years, the Republic of Altai has organized different tourist operators to Ulaanbaatar and Tulgi. We signed a series of export contracts for delivery of goods, goods manufactured by local companies, and also for provision of services in the tourist industry. In August 2022, we concluded some collaboration on cooperation in the social, cultural, and also economic areas with the Republic of Altai. For our social and economic development, we need to get the transport corridor. As we know, Chuyski Tract is undergoing repair between Kashanka and the Russian border. In conclusion, I would like to stress the reconstruction of the automotive Tashanta checkpoint at the border between Russia and Mongolia will play an important role to increase the throughput capacity for the vehicles going in both directions. This will help us boost the goods traffic between Mongolia and Republic of Altai. I'm happy that this time Manzharok Resort has become the place we meet again. Thank you very much. Member of our panel is the Minister of Natural Resources of the Republic of Belarus. How did you fly here? Didn't you take a direct flight or what? Please elaborate on your collaboration experience with the Republic of Altai. The Republic of Belarus is a member of the Russian-Belarusian Union. We arrived here at the resort Manzharok in huge numbers. We have a big delegation here. I'd like to thank you for giving me the floor. First of all, I'd like to greet all the participants of the forum, distinguished Oleg Leonidovich, head of the Republic, distinguished panelists. On behalf of the Ministry for Natural Resources and Environmental Protection, I personally would like to greet everybody at such important and relevant forum. Forum ALTAI, Threads of the Nature 2023. Once again, big thanks to the organizers and to local authorities and to local people for such organization and such huge welcome from your side. And once again, such forums and events pose real good opportunity to exchange best practices and experiences. And sitting here in this beautiful hall, I learned many interesting things just for myself. For me, it's also important to propagate information and share some information on some environmental issues and to engage more and more people into environmentally important activities. So, based on the example, what you have here done in Manzharok, protecting the environment and responsibility for the nature is an obligation of the mankind, but also the officials. So, economic, social, environmental interests are interconnected, and we need to take actions based on combination of these factors to address all the environmental problems. For me, it seems really critically important. Businesses need to be engaged to act in combination with the governmental authorities. In the Republic of Belarus, for businesses, the preservation of nature and protection of nature is responsibility for the companies. At the national law level, we developed some program documents. Environmental agenda has been monitored by the President of the Republic of Belarus, Mr. Lukashenko. In this regard, I can fairly tell you that our ministry has been lucky to be working under such framework. All the matters addressed here in Russia by the Russian Ecological Control, we have our ministry deployed for this purpose, and it works without any problems. So, in Belarus, we have multi-level environmental education system, starting from the kindergarten through school to vocal training courses. So, we have created green school networks in Belarus. we have introduced some coordination councils to monitor and manage these activities. Answering your question about what are the contacts and what are the potential cooperation point between the Republic of Belarus and the Republic of Altai, we have really huge potential for this purpose. And not only potential, but we've done many really hands-on projects and initiatives. And what I'm seeing here in Altai in terms of being done really makes me think very optimistic. We run some initiatives in Belarus targeted at reduction of negative impact on the nature. We also educate our citizens in terms of providing them with some relevant information on preserving the environment. We have some informational resources in Belarus where you can learn about the current status of the natural environment. And all these resources are being constantly improved and upgraded. But today, as I was passing through the stands at this exhibition, I was excited and really surprised by young professionals who are working in the environmental protection industry and who developed really interesting environmental important relevant programs so that they will be working to the benefit of our union states. We have roundtables, different environmental campaigns, initiatives, competitions. The most significant environmental events in 2023, we held actually Republican Environmental Forum, which has been held for the 17th time, and second specialty exhibition, Ecology Expo 2023. We have environmental mediation practices in our country, which help us to get some feedback from the public, which we'll consider during drafting some initiatives in the area of protecting the environment. It's not just words, it's not just declarations. This does really work in Belarus. So we don't have to blindly follow the current global climate agenda, where the businesses have been deliberately imposed the Western leftist agenda, environmental agenda. So we need to draft really understandable and accessible environmental agenda to ensure the new level of environmental sovereignty, so that we can ensure environmental safety of our countries, so that we can engage our citizens for this purpose and also our governmental bodies and authorities. We need to do whatever is needed to not only to defend ourselves from the geopolitical influence from outside, but also we need to come together to find the resources to improve the environmental conditions in our countries. We need to jointly work with professionals from different countries. This is the most correct way to ensure the current state of preservation of nature in our countries. Because protecting the nature, we are protecting our homeland. I wish all the participants successful and fruitful work on the grounds of this forum. Thank you very much, Andrei. The increase of the tourist flow means always increasing the amount of trash. And Svetlana pointed out correctly that every 10th arriving is behaving not that good, because as locals think they don't behave that well. Denis Putaev, managing director of the National Environmental Operator. Can you elaborate on the successful practices on preserving the nature in Altai, which can be applied to the current conditions we have in the Republic of Altai? Thank you very much. I would like to be as brief as possible to not see overload with the contents of today's agenda. But we agreed on that. I'm going to be delivering you some presentation on the exact project we are running. For instance, Svetlana mentioned, and I agree with her, environmental agenda starts reminding environmental initiatives from some major companies when they start telling how they are correctly treating the nature and environment. And when we ask them, what do you exactly do to make the resources renewed or just to produce more renewable resources? So because we'd like to separate the PR activities from the actual actions, the so-called greenwashing. We have 74,000 tons of waste, which accounts for 90% of all the tons of waste which we're currently running here in the Republic of ALTAI. By the end of the current year, we are approaching the design completion, and then we'll have to undergo the construction expert assessment and review. And we have different sources of funding for this project. We are part of the major projects by Sberbank in the area of the mountain Altai. But we would like to say that Sberbank is one of the biggest infrastructural investors who is investing in the solid waste site management. So we are dealing with some green bonds placement because there is closed subscription, open subscription made by Sberbank.
It's a very important project, especially considering that the region has been using the facilities that we are trying to decommission in the next few years, and the emergence of a new facility will ensure new indicators to the operation of my colleague here. I would also like to note that if you count the number of citizens in relation to the waste, you will see about 1 kilo per year, 1,000 kilos per year, and the high amount of waste shows that there is a huge flux of tourists that add a lot to the waste to be treated. The waste management system is built in such a way that unfortunately a lot of these costs will be in the tariff for waste management that is imposed upon the citizens. If we talk about the operating period, I think it would be feasible to look into the so-called resort fee. In this respect, I really count on the support of the legislators so that they would allow the regions to use these amounts, among other needs, for a waste management. With respect to the next projects, I think I will take it upon myself to announce them. Oleg and I agreed that we are launching a new project, including among other things, to dispose of construction waste, and I think it will allow us to process most of this waste, creating secondary materials that can be used for a new economic needs. I think it would be a very interesting task, given Gorny Altai, despite its compact size, has all sorts of waste, probably except for too much industrial production waste. But in any case, we are trying to ensure a closed cycle economy. And to finish up my presentation, I would like to talk about the environmental consciousness of each one of us. Everybody heard about the 10% of pigs that was mentioned by my colleague, and all of us can be these pigs. I mean, it's not just about littering in a negative way, outright littering, but also about not sorting waste, not recycling. By not recycling, you are enhancing your environmental footprint in any case. So environmental consciousness must be raised among the population through outreach programs, including from many opinion leaders. Maybe there could be some calls and appeals, but it's a question everybody needs to ask themselves. Every morning you pick a product. I mean, you can just pick something more green. And every time you dispose of something, when you throw something away, you also have choices to make. Either you try to sort waste, of course, if you have the infrastructure to sort it, and I think that in Gorny Altai we will have this infrastructure available to every person practically in the nearest future. So either you sort it or you damage the environment. And the last thing I would like to say is that, well, there is a rating, an expert rating that's supposed to show what amount of environmental resources is being spent per year and how much of them are renewable and how much not. Currently, going into the 5th month of our functioning as a global ecosystem, we will be done with the resources, and after that we will just destroy the environment. So on this less than optimistic but necessary note, I would like to close my presentation. Thank you, Denise. Well, for the audience, I would like to specify that indeed 40 to 50% of trash per year comes from our guests, from our tourists. But we've been training them, potty training them, so to say. We collect things into these black trash bags, and we are either using Republican funds or municipal funds rather than taxing our population for this. And hopefully, together with you, we will finish the construction of a construction waste disposal plant, and we'll be able to use the secondary materials for more infrastructure. Thank you so much for this. Isn't that wonderful? Dear friends, we are a little bit late because we were late in the beginning of this session. So let me put on a video address of Kazem Jalali, ambassador of Iran.
Во имя Бога милостивого, милосердного.
In the name of God Almighty, Your Excellency Mr. Karakhordan, head of the Altai Republic, Mr. Fadeev, Your Excellency. Okay, what's wrong with this? Dear Council of the President of the Russian Federation, Your Excellency Mr. Tsyganov, First Deputy Minister for Natural Resources and Ecology of the Russian Federation, I would like to welcome all the distinguished participants of the Altai Ecological Forum, and I wish you all the best of the success in this important forum in this beautiful region of Altai. Several months ago, I visited this republic, and I'm grateful to the head of the Altai Republic and to all of his team for the warm welcome they gave me. In my opinion, Altai is proud not only of Russia but of the whole world, because this region was able to maintain its virginal nature on the 3% of the territory of the world. And it's really important. And it's only natural that the local population plays a large role in the preservation of the local environment. I myself witnessed the head of the Republic of Altai and the officials of the region make huge efforts to preserve the environment while also creating new jobs and developing businesses. They are indeed focused on ensuring that their economy does not damage the environment in any way. On the other hand, they're also focused on encouraging tourism and try to attract tourists into the region. In my opinion, this is a very important element to make sure that you create the proper infrastructure for the development of the region while also creating jobs and maintaining environmental standards. I think that today we, people of the earth, must think of the trouble we have created for the environment and think of what we need to do to not exacerbate this damage. In this respect, the fact that the Republic of Altai, where environmental requirements are observed, also hosts this forum is very welcome. And we think that this ecological thinking will be further spread across the world. And we hope that your programs like the deforestation program in Russia and the economic capacity enhancement of environmental action will be further traced in its progress by the Forum and the government. We hope for expanding cooperation between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Russia in the area of ecology. As you all know, we also have our own Environment Protection Agency, whose head is the Vice President of Iran. Environmental matters are important to us, which is why the head of this organization has a special position. In Iran, we have 4 areas of special economic status, 16 national parks, 13 natural monuments, 33 preserves for wild animals, and 94 protected natural territories. In this respect, out of the 14 climatic zones of the world, we have 11. And in Iran, we put a lot of effort into studying and protecting the environment. Of course, we have a lot of issues to tackle, and we cooperate with many countries of the world, including the Russian Federation, to make sure that we can support each other in environmental matters. In some areas, we have common interests with Russia, such as the Caspian Sea. It's a sea of friendship between 5 countries, each of which must make its own contribution into the protection of the Caspian Sea. And we can work with each other in other areas as well. For instance, we have been trying to protect and enhance the population of Iranian leopards. And hopefully, this cooperation will be further expanded. Due to climate changes and bad environmental effects, different areas of our lives can be affected. Being neighbors in our region, we can do some serious cooperation. Once again, thank you all so much. I very much wanted to take part in the forum and visit the beautiful and prosperous region personally, but due to a lot of travels and a lot of Iranian Russian delegations on the move, this time I couldn't make it, and I ask your forgiveness for it. And please enjoy this beautiful, wonderful region and have a great forum. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Iran, and we continue our plenary session. So, what will we do without science? I would like to give the floor to the Director of Environmental Issues and Evolution Research Institute, Sergei Naidenko. tired as we all are, we have to wrap this up. Hello, dear colleagues. I'll try to be brief. By background, I'm a biologist, and I'm a corresponding member of the Russian Academy of Sciences. I'm still cringing at the current notion of ecology because it's actually a science about an organism interacting with its environment. And now they've been using the term liberally. They also name the term environmental or ecological sovereignty. Sovereignty is not about independence. I mean, you cannot escape the pollution of the Amur River by China. We cannot escape Baikal pollution, including by Mongolia. We cannot escape a dam built on the Uza River. We cannot escape the Fukushima plant disaster fallout. So environmental sovereignty is not independence, but rather a fine line between the economic, environmental, and social interests of our society. The opportunity to place these boundaries ourselves. But we need to be scientifically informed in these decisions. This is something that hasn't been mentioned. Mr. Fadeev has already said that you need to listen to experts. But it doesn't mean that you need to be closed in your decisions. I mean, our institute has been working in Vietnam for over 35 years. We have a research and technology center there. We have been in Mongolia for over 35 years as well. We have a joint expedition there. We've been creating a joint center with Ethiopia, where we also have been for over 30 years. And this also contributes to our environmental sovereignty, if you will. Svetlana has already mentioned the carbon hype, as she said. But our tower works in Tver Oblast for over 25 years, so we were there before the hype. And we also have towers like this in Vietnam for collecting data, and we collect information for objective decision-making. And another thing I would like to mention is that we've been preparing proposals to the government of the Russian Federation through the dedicated Vice Prime Minister to test the new approaches to eco-monitoring of not only pollution, but also the current condition of biodiversity. I'm not sure if the centers we are trying to create based on our biostations be called centers for ecological sovereignty, or will they need to be renamed something else? But that's how it works. First, science has to test approaches and then recommend things, and then it's up to the controlling bodies to adopt it or not. We want to create a system like this based on our 3 or 4 biostations, and maybe we should also think about including a Center for Biodiversity Preservation in Altai that's called the snow leopard. It was created by the president of Tatarstan, or well, maybe under the aegis with leadership of Rustam Minekhanov and the head of Altai Republic, Oleg Khorahordin. And we've been responsible for the scientific part of it. It's about 50 kilometers off Gorno-Altaysk, quite close to Manzhirok. And the very last thing I would like to say, I would like to note that I'm really grateful for your giving me the floor, and we work a lot with businesses lately. They ask us to assess biodiversity. We work with Rosneft, with Magnitogorsk metallurgy plant, with Yevraz. I will not mention all the businesses we are tied to. And I'm amazed at how many businesses are attracted to us. Sometimes I get a notion that they are more active and more responsive to science than the government of the Russian Federation, even one way or another. That's how it works. And to finish, I would like to quote my Swiss colleague, who is now head of the International Union of Natural Preservation. He's a specialist in felines. At an international forum, speakers were asked, why do you even do this science? What else do you want to learn about tigers? I mean, just work and everything will be fine. Just do something. And my colleague said, you know, I know a lot of cases when investment in science or a specific scientific project ended up just in smoke. But if you calculate the money that was invested in businesses and environmental projects that are not scientifically based, this is incomparably more. So I'm really happy that right now we are discussing the preservation of the unique nature of Altai, and I hope we will keep discussing these issues further. Okay, just a few words from me, if I may. I would like to defend the government here. It so happened that I'm probably the only representative of the executive here. Well, let's be honest. Many here are engaged in environmental science. I know how ecologists were paid 3 years ago and how they are paid now and how they are demanded now. It's good that science is in demand. I've met the Moscow State University and other representatives. I've met other businesses, and I've heard the distinguished scientists saying you can do nothing without money. 10 to 15 billion rubles per year for consulting. 20 billion per year for costs, 4 billion for R&D, and 35 plus billion per year for project support, environmental project support of businesses. And all of this incites the businesses to come to you for expert advice. And let's listen to the person who said nothing can be done without money. I mean, you can teach people, you can convince people, you can engage people, you can convene conferences, you can cry, you can bring them to the sacred places to pray, etc. But you'll just be buried in the process. The government has been investing. It has been leading the way, being the model. The Ministry of Natural Resources over the past 4 years has changed its positions in all matters drastically. I think the president is a walking advertisement of green. You know, everything he does advertises in terms of biodiversity, in terms of treating the nature right, in terms of his lifestyle, choices, etc. I mean, natural preservation agenda has been very much streamlined. 4 years ago, they didn't even know what we are called. My agency, what was it, environmental, Russian, whatever, nobody could even pronounce it. But now I think everybody knows our name, because we incite people to go pay scientists so that they can prove to us that things can be cheap but also environmentally friendly. So 2 years ago, we talked, and I asked, and the local community asked me to preserve what they had, because they don't need metallurgy plants, they don't need petroleum refineries, etc. They would just want to preserve what there was. And the ministry developed the law, the State Duma supported it, and everything is being done. And the community has been responding and becoming more engaged because, you know, they feel that their voices are heard. You know, people do not like to shout into the void. And so the government is doing everything to push businesses to come to you. And I wish all the best and the best of prosperity to any businesses, because it contributes to the strength of Russia and to all of us. That's what we're working for. But science must be more transparent, more honest, and more preventive and proactive. It should lead the way to us and not just change positions. There shouldn't be 8 opinions for any 2 scientists given in a room, you know. Be more proactive. I've seen representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, if I see correctly from where I'm sitting. And we've just discussed the international agenda at the MSU. And we need to be more proactive there, and we need to talk about our neighbors and interactions with them, the cross-border movement of air and water masses, etc. So They do go to you because the government at every level has sent a clear message that environment protection is one of the priorities. We are sure to be in the top 5 of the actors here, and we have been absolutely consistent in defending this agenda. I see firsthand how much work hours, how many work hours and how much strength is being spent on it. You know, the debates can be very heated of the laws concerning this. Only housing and utilities laws are passed with more nerve. And Vice Prime Minister has been doing a lot. She's traveled a lot. She's led the way a lot. For the first time in the country, there is a law that is called after its sponsor. You know, we are naming it the Solsky Law because the Vice Prime Minister, you know, saw for herself the ways that people leave behind. So I wish all the best to your businesses, and I wish you all the possible prosperity. We'll all be better off for it. But I want to emphasize, as a controller, as a monitor who sees a lot of feedback, that the government, let me assure you, is proactive. It's 1.5 steps ahead of you. It sets the trends. And on our part, we invite you, including at this forum, to convene more businesses. We're waiting for businesses to initiate a platform like this. It shouldn't be us that are dragging you here, you know. We have things to ask you about. We have things to discuss. That's what we want you to tell us. You know, I would be amazed to see businesses, you know, to have a frank wanting to have a frank conversation about green things. I'm sorry about complaining so much, but that's my dream. Well, I think it's a very energetic and bright conclusion to our session. Let's give a round of applause to Svetlana. There really are many matters to discuss and to debate, you know, the measures to take, but we have another session coming, and I would like to thank our speakers for the participation. Please take your seats in the front row. We have a surprise for you, and in just a few moments, you will understand what I mean. And I would like to pass the floor to the Minister of Education of the Government of the Republic of Altai, Olga Savrasova. I'm Marina Rossius. I moderated today's session, by the way. Dear participants, hello. In order to promote environmental education and environmental awareness in our country by forming love for nature in children and students, in order to participate in the preservation of nature in the regions, nature protection social projects were founded. The eco-schoolers, preschoolers, and eco-comprehensive schoolers, and the territory of young nature protectors. Thanks to Oleg Karakhurdin, head of the Republic, our region has been actively involved in these projects on its territory. The Republic of Altai was named a territory of young nature protectors. In the kindergartens, we have been creating special groups on environment, and in comprehensive schools, children can take part in various educational projects. Senator of the Russian Federation from the Republic of Altai and coordinator of the preschool and school eco-schoolers is moderated by Tatiana Gigel. Dear Oleg Leonidovich, Svetlana and Denise, dear participants of the ALTAI Environmental Forum, On behalf of all eco-schoolers of Altai, allow me to thank you for your participation in such a significant and relevant event. Thank you for making natural protecting decisions at this forum, decisions whose implementation will affect not only the nature of Altai, but also the future of the whole Russia. Eco-schoolers of Altai are kindergartners and school children who are doing everything possible to protect the natural region. We always protect our nature and take care of it. We protect water and save water that is used in our houses. We pick up litter and don't leave it anywhere to lie around. In our Republic of Altai, we have annual All-Russian Day of Eco-Schoolers, and we take part in various All-Russian competitions, Olympiads, and lessons. We are the Eco-Schoolers of Altai. We hereby swear to do everything possible to become the true protectors, the best, reliable friends of nature. Eco-Schoolers have a sermon and a hymn, which we would like to show you. The sun shines brightly in the clear sky. Springs are tinkling in the mountains. In the forest, nightingales are singing. Nature charms us with its beauty. It inspires us. It amazes us with its wonders. But it only is true if you save it. We are eco-schoolers, the protectors of nature, and the biggest friends of plants and animals. We are heirs to the riches of the earth.
Защитники животных, растений, большие друзья. Оберегаем, мы любим природу, чтобы жить, сохранить на планете Земля.
Look around you and you will see. Every day is filled with magic. Rainbow and rains behind your window. We make sure to keep safe the nature, its calm and repose. If we love our nature, we love our motherland.
Животных, растений, большие друзья. Богатство земли, молодые наследники, на страже природы стоим ты и я. Мы эколята, природы защитники, животных, растений, большие друзья. Оберегаем, мы любим природу, чтобы жить, сохранить на планете Земля.
Dear Head of Republic, dear Svetlana and Denis, on behalf of Eco-Schoolers of the Republic of Altai, we ask you to support the relay of good deeds of Eco-Schoolers in our Republic to help save the nature of our motherland. We would like for this relay to be inscribed in the Book of Good Deeds of Eco-Schoolers. The Book of Good Deeds of Eco-Scholars has been inscribed by Valentina Matvienko and Victoria Abramchenko on behalf of the government of the Russian Federation, thereby starting a new initiative in Russia. So let us support the Eco-Scholars proposal. I think that the initiative of Eco-Scholars must be welcomed, and I think we should give some souvenirs to our dear Eco-Scholars. Ms. Rodionova, please don't leave yet. Let us take a family picture with our Eco-Scholars.
Еще раз предлагаю похлопать.
Once again, let's give a round of applause to our Eco-Scholars. It was very exciting to them, clearly. Dear plenary session participants, I would like to thank the team of Ross Congress, first of all, for having us here and for holding already the second high-level forum. And of course, I would like to thank the team of the Manzharok Resort for excellent organizational skills. Thank you for being with us.